Hough. We are now into the free-for-all section of the debate where the candidates get to ask each other questions. We thought this would be a good way to open it up and let you guys figure out from your angle what's important, what you believe is important for this race. So, Paul, you're going to be out of the gate first. You can ask Michael a question, and Michael will have 2 minutes to respond.
The first question I would ask, and actually this is something that has been floating around for some time. Mike, you've always argued that we're an overtaxed state. We have driven businesses out of the state, which is it's a questionable conclusion. But the point we have right now in terms of cutting taxes is simply when a state is in a deficit, how can you propose or accomplish cutting taxes at a time when you have a state in deficit and has to use its resources to make sure it has a balanced budget?
Sure. Well, first off, it's not, I think people look at it and they think because you cut taxes, you bring in less revenue. I think that's false to begin with. It's a false premise to start with. And if you look at it historically, I'll use some national examples. In 1980, when Ronald Reagan came into office, the top income rate was, I think it was up in the 70% for the top income tax bracket. When they lowered it down all the way to 33%, well, income to the federal government actually increased from, back then it was $500 billion up to $1 trillion over the course of that term, from dropping the bracket from 70% to 33%. And in a state, you'll see the effects more of cutting taxes because it's harder federally because businesses don't move around as much, but within states, they do move around a lot. So first off, by cutting taxes, I actually think we would bring in more revenue. And if you look at it, the tax increases that we're supposed to, they increased $1.4 billion in taxes, where we are in the same exact place as where we were when we started. So I actually think from cutting taxes, we'll bring in more revenue because, for instance, we're one of only 2 states to have a death tax and an inheritance tax. Well, what person that's a multimillionaire would plan to leave their estate in Maryland? They wouldn't. They would go to another state where they can actually leave their inheritance, leave their business, leave their life's earning to their children. So with those kinds of class warfare taxes in Maryland, we are killing ourselves. That's just revenue we're giving away. And, look at the area where Paul and I live. Paul's from Burkittsville, I'm from Brunswick. Out there, the cigarette tax is so high, it's prohibitive, that nobody will buy tobacco products in Maryland. They just drive right across the bridge to Virginia. So that's another example of tax revenues because of our high tax, attitude that we're giving away. And the other example is we're just going to have to cut spending. Spending in Maryland, our budget has doubled in 10 years. That is unsustainable. We're going to have to cut spending.
Well, let me just run into a couple of you made a lot of points, most of which I have to disagree with. First of all, let me just see if I can tick them off. The inheritance tax and the estate tax. It's driving millionaires out of Maryland. Maryland is number 3 or 2 of millionaires who live in this state. So you haven't driven anyone out yet. That's go look
Paul,
that statistic up.
People left. The reporting was
someone left. Yeah, I'm sure someone left. But the point is, we still have the highest number of millionaires in the state. They're not all leaving. And 2, remember the word he used was millionaires. You can go on for an hour on a dissertation on this. That alone was simply only affects millionaires. Literally, it doesn't affect you, unless Mike owns a $3 million home. It's never going to affect him either. So the point is that the taxes that we take, you want to give it so that we give taxes back with the assumption it's going to raise business. But what about the public expenditures that we all do in the state for the good of the public?
All right, Michael. Your turn.
Yeah, I'm not a millionaire, but I sure would like to have their tax revenue to pay for our schools, for new school construction, for new roads, for all these great projects that we want to do in Maryland. And a great example is, it's this old class warfare, Barack Obama and Martin O'Malley running around on this, and it was this millionaire's tax they put in Maryland. I mean, what a ridiculous tax. If you look at what it did to Montgomery County, I mean, what was it, they had half less filers, millionaires, than they did the year before. Now, sure, some of those people maybe weren't millionaires anymore because of the recession, but you look at Montgomery County, their budget was decimated by that tax. Because the millionaires, guess what? They left. They own homes in multiple states, and they can move down to Tennessee or Florida or a state without an income tax. And that's the problem. Unless you're going to build a wall or a moat around your state, you just can't continue to increase taxes.
All right,
well,
Mike.
that was a big assumption there because they said that the economy turned down a few millionaires. So beyond that, you can't make assumptions that they all beat feet out of the county because, gee whiz, the county was overtaxing them. If they came anyplace, they stayed in Maryland, moved up to Frederick County. We're doing very, very well, and that's the fact of life. So we are doing good by our public.
Okay, Michael, ask a question to Paul.
Yeah, sure. My question is, in 2007, Martin O'Malley raised the car tax, the sales tax, tax on business, and income taxes. Do you agree with these taxes? And if not, which tax increase do you disagree with?
You know, the only tax I happen to disagree with, frankly, right now is the septic tax, the flush tax, only because I live on a farm. And what you realize is that we're not impinging upon anyone else when you're basically running it through the soil. The point is, again, we have a budget deficit. We need to use the money we have. The complaint tends to be the sales tax. Isn't it going to drive people out? Well, Pennsylvania has 6%, Virginia has 5%, but they actually tax more. And so the point is we are not, and this is my concern, is as a businessman myself, who actually has to make the budgets and pay the payments and do all the things necessary, it's not that tax is not onerous, and it's the best used tax into the general revenue. The point is no one's going to leave Burkittsville because they can save 1% in Virginia. They don't do that, or they're certainly not going to save. They can't go to Pennsylvania. And so there's what we look at is a tri-state or even a quadruple state tax equity. What are the other guys doing? Well, they're doing all the same things we are. And the assumption is going to be some kind of negative flow or reverse flow if we reduce a tax or two. The thing is I don't want to raise taxes. I will certainly look where I can make cuts. But what I will not do is do a meat axe type of a slice of a tax. I can't do that because I have to know, is there a rational nexus for the tax that's being used and what it's being used for? So if there's an appropriate use and necessity for that tax, I think we have to understand we pay for public services.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to respond real quick. That's a fundamental disagreement between the two of us is on the issue of taxes. In 2007, when Martin O'Malley raised those taxes, I would have voted no. And next year going down there in session, it's going to be the big difference, I think. If you have Martin O'Malley down there, they're going to try to raise taxes again. We already know that. That's what their history says. They're going to go in. Last time they went in 2007, 4 years before the election cycle, and raised taxes. They're going to go in this time right after the election cycle. Hey, we won. Everyone forgot. We'll raise taxes again. This time it'll be the sales tax. It'll be an expansion going into all your services. I've signed the pledge. I'll vote against any and all tax increases. But for voters out there, this is the most important thing to know is, with Governor Ehrlich, with Republicans down there, we're going to vote no on taxes. We're going to look for ways to cut the budget, cut spending without raising taxes. For me, I will not vote for any tax increases. We are way overtaxed. We're number 4 in the nation. People cannot afford it anymore.
All right.
We really should talk about this at a greater length because this seems to be the crux of the issue here. All we hear is no taxes, assuming that the state needs no money to pay for a service. Now, when Democrats go down there, the fact of the matter is we're not going to raise taxes to hurt Maryland in a recession year. We've gone through a couple of years of recession. We don't want to hurt Maryland taxpayers or the homeowners. That's not going to happen. Now, I do not sign pledges because I don't box myself in, and I don't know where there might be something that might have some viability. But the point is that we are not going to raise taxes. That was a huge assumption on Mike's part. He invokes O'Malley's going to forget the lessons of an election that quickly. I think he's a little smarter than that. And so he understands that what we will do is work within the budget that we have, not to raise taxes and not to simply sit there and use a meat axe against some other tax.
Okay, we have to go out to another break here. Again, we got to pay the bills. We'll be right back after these messages.